family and friends. What's happening, everybody? So, as you guys know, we did have a time change. We are now uh, broadcasting on Sunday mornings at 9:30. With my new work schedule, it just worked out better. Um, so we swapped over to Sunday, same time, different day. You guys know what we're about. You know what we do. I hope everybody's doing all right. We've been a little bit under the weather here last couple of days. Danica has been pretty sick, and then yesterday, me, Lizzie, and Sean came down with just about the same thing. So we're recovering. We're at home resting. It's been nice. As always, let's introduce my co-host and the founder of Formers, Sammy Rangel. Samuel, good morning.
Good morning, brother.
What's happening, bro? How you feeling today?
I'm good, man. I think we just gotta let everybody know we're aware that your camera or that your microphone, you sound like you're underwater a little bit.
Underwater?
Yeah, it's just echoey. Real, it's not echoey. It's like you're in a room, like an empty room sound.
Huh. My
You
room's not.
already know that. It doesn't sound as rich and clear as it used to.
All right, yeah, this new computer is taking a little bit of getting used to. Um, had a technical difficulty. My CPU burned out on my last one, so I had to rush to get one much better, much higher quality than the last one. But I don't think my microphone and camera, which are older, agree with it as much. Obviously,
Gotcha.
about picking up a new mic.
Yeah, you got to problem solve that so you can sound like you're a professional, not a newbie.
Well, listen, I don't I don't mind sounding like a newbie as long as our message gets heard and it helps. I, I'll accept being a noob. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just trying to get healthy, enjoy my weekend. We're
How
doing
was the
all right.
cold
It's
snap for you guys?
um I mean, we had a couple days of cold, but I was outside in just a hoodie this morning. It was decent. Walk the dog and yeah. We're not having too bad weather right now.
Yeah, it was single digits and negatives for a minute here.
Yeah,
Here
we
for
were
a
around
while.
freezing for a couple days. They canceled school because the roads were icy, but we're in good shape.
Morning, Julie. Love you, sweetie. Sean, good morning. Julie, thank you for coming to the assist this morning. I look forward to talking with you next week, bringing you on. It's been a long time since you've been on the show, but I'm definitely excited about uh, seeing your face, my friend. Incarcerate US, or US Incarcerate. If you guys don't know, they are actually the group that helped uh, me get off my feet when it comes to this. And Julie is our producer, and she's also the creator and producer for U.S. Incarcerate. Uh, Without her, we wouldn't have a show. They do some great work. If you guys are interested, uh, go ahead and check them out. Definitely huge supporters of them trying to revamp the justice system in the United States. Um, Definitely in support of that. Regardless of what side of the bench you sit on, we all know that we need reform and we need change. So definitely supporting that. So, Sammy, how you doing?
Third time, I'm doing fucking great.
Yeah, yeah, you're doing all right. You ready to get into this morning?
What are we getting into? Let's do it.
Well, it's been a
Are there
couple
any
weeks.
questions? Any questions from the people in their chat? Topics that make sense that are related to yourself, others, people, places, and things that affect us, right? Like, um, things have been, for the most part, pretty quiet. There's not a lot of external tension around here, but that doesn't mean that stuff that we talk about isn't ongoing for some folks, right? So we've been talking about forgiveness. We've been talking about parenting, relationship. Like we when we go back and look at the archives, we cover a lot of freaking ground. You know, we talk about grieving and mourning. Just
You know what's mind-boggling to me? You're right, man. We covered tons of ground, right? And we still haven't really scratched the surface of recovery, right? Like we're in it, and there's so much more that goes with it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an uh, evolving and involving process. At least for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can't do it alone, man, and that's the tricky part is that, and maybe that's what we talk about today, and we've talked about it before, but it's been a while. I think people think they're working on themselves when they're actually not. I think people talk about recovery, and not even just from like a drug and alcohol perspective or violence perspective, but people talk about working on themselves, but they're really not. It's not that they're not doing anything, but they're not really doing it. You know, it's, I think for example, are you dieting if if you don't have a plan, right? You're not tracking it, you can't compare it, you don't have a goal. And you might say, well, I'm trying to eat healthier. And that is so big and vague. Like it's not really something that you can track and monitor. Um, we have to do things in a very particular, specific way if we want maximum results. You know, I think there's dieting as compared to a gravel road, and there's dieting as compared to like a highway, transportation system, right? Like what kind of road are you on, when it comes to whatever it is you're trying to do. And let's just talk about, if we're going to be specific, let's just talk about how willing people are, how open they are to counseling, right? I can't tell you and my perception, both as a professional and personally, the vast majority of people in the very beginning are not open to counseling. And maybe for good reason, right? Like maybe they've had shitty experiences in the past. Maybe they've had, maybe they've been told things that make them have like stereotypes about it, right? They've seen movies, or they've been shamed, right? Like some people will shame you, some people in your family will shame you for that. Like when we think about what it takes to do it, and you can jump in on here too, Mother. How much of this did we actually do alone, and how much of this did we actually do with others, right? And then how much of this did we do with professionals? Because those are all three different things, right? Alone, with others, with professionals, right? Now, while we'll shit on therapists and counseling, we all see the value of a professional when it comes to what? When you need a tooth pulled, when you need heart surgery, when you need your car fixing, you're not a mechanic, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. We all can see the need for professionals, and we all engage in that way. But when it comes to opening up our own mind to things like this, we tend to stop short. Now that's just one component, right? Um, when it comes to recovery, how much do we rely on the process of recovery and what that really looks like? Um, and then the work that we do alone, you know, how much of it actually makes it into a journal? How much of it actually makes it into a concrete effort? I think we, I think we wing it way more than we should, and then we're disappointed in those results. Now that's that, right? Now on the flip side of that, here's what's going on. Those things we don't realize have a direct impact on our relationships. Right now, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this girl says she gets irritated when people try to act like they know her. Right now, check this out. This is a conundrum. This is a broken cycle. She says she gets irritated when This sounds ludicrous to me. She gets irritated when people act like they know her, and she's like, "Shit, you don't know me. Hell, I don't even know me." Just think about how stupid that is, right? Like, in my opinion, it's like I was like, she doesn't understand that when she's acting like those two things are separate events. They don't know me. Hell, I don't even know me. Well, you're interacting with people with that lack of self-awareness. You yourself are interacting with people. And then when you have such low self-awareness, you're not aware of what you're projecting. And people can comment on it and you're like, well, you don't know me. How could that be me if I don't see it coming from me? Well, it can be coming from you because of your lack of self-awareness. You're not going to know that you're projecting. Right. Tell me, raise your hands in the comments. Raise your hand if you know people with trust issues who act like they don't have trust issues. Right. Like, and everyone around them knows, hey, they got trust issues. I ain't got no trust issues.
Right.
I'm fine, perfectly fine. Right. Now that's one. Now, when we think about the trust issues, because some of this you don't know me shit comes from the projected trust issues we have. Think about this. How can you have a wholesome, fulfilling relationship with someone when you're only giving them bits and pieces of yourself? No fucking wonder you feel disconnected from people. You're giving them, 20% of who you are, but you want to feel 100% loved. They can only, even if they loved you, they can only love you at the 100%, at the 20% amount that you give them. They can only care for that 20% that you give them 100%. They can give that to you, but then you walk away feeling, I'm in another failed relationship. I'm unsatisfied. I'm unhappy, but we're only giving away parts of ourselves, meaning that you can only have partial relationships, friendships, romance, things like that, right? And you're saying, well, no one's living up to the standard that I dream of, but you don't realize it's what you're projecting. Like you're giving only, if look, you're Monte Azul. The people in your own life only loved Bigfoot because you kept Monte Azul put away. And so the people who come to love you love Bigfoot.
And
And
it's funny you talk about that or mention that because I have a really good friend. She got incarcerated and it tore her apart daily. She'd write me 20-page letters 4 or 5 times a week. And her question kept saying is, how do you do it? How are you so cold and able to handle 20 years of this incarceration and still seem okay? And I explained to her, that's exactly what I explained to her. Monte Azul wasn't incarcerated, Bigfoot was, right? And I separated those two personas, right? When I was on the phone or on a visit with my family, I was Monte, right? When I was in the joint, I was Bigfoot. Like I was a different human being. Um, and to round you back to the beginning, when you said how many of us can recover without professional help, or how many of us think we're in recovery, right, without even realizing that we're not. Me, in the beginning, day one, walking through those doors downtown at the church, where I thought I was good, where I thought I was, solid, and I was going to be okay, and I had been working on myself, and I had made massive strides in my head, right, until I sat down in group, until you and I started having our one-on-ones, and you were both a friend and a professional, right? Until we did that, I didn't realize how far behind I was from where I thought I wanted to go, right? And now that I'm reaching those strides of where I'm going, I realize how much farther I have. Right? I didn't know. Like I had truly thought I was okay. I came home. I didn't mess with the homies. I wasn't using. I wasn't banging. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't doing any of the things that got me put in prison. And I thought that's all it took. I thought that's all it took. And then we came into group, and you're like, bro, why don't you come and have some professional meetings with me and sit down, and we'll get you in this program, and we'll see what we can do to help you. and you were really nonchalant about it, right? You were like, listen, this is really important, but if you want to, you want to. If you don't, you don't. And you maintain that even in our visits, right? You're like, listen, bro, if you don't want to work on it, don't work on it. But if you want to work on it, I'm here to hear, and I'm here to listen. And that's when I started learning that as far forward as I thought I had been, like I wasn't nowhere near where I thought I was. And it took that. So I definitely support that thought process that we can't do it alone. We won't make it alone. We can't even see where we are, right? Like we don't even know where we are without someone engaging. And the hardest part for me was trusting, right? Like when I met you, you had so many strikes against you, right? You were op, you were, you know what I mean? You were a professional. You worked with the PD. You worked with the parole offices. Like you had all these things. I had heard about you from prison, right? Like there were all these things against me actually liking, but trusting you. Like I don't know if you remember, it took until it took like it was after I painted that mural before I really opened up and split myself and said, "Hey, listen, bro, this is what's going inside of me. I can't take it. I can't do it. I'm falling apart. I need help." Right? It was after the mural. We had already been friends for a year. Like I had already considered you my friend. Right? It still took a good like year for me to break out, open up, and finding that right in our relationship, in our bond, um, taught me a lot. Like it, just being able to like you knew things about me that no one else. Like there's things I've told you that I've never spoken. It, it took a lot, man. But you're right. Once we had created that bond, and once we had stepped past that trust boundary, like my recovery changed. My whole thought of recovery changed. It definitely helped me. Yeah,
You
absolutely,
know,
bro.
and I think you're touching on something that's important because, addictions, whether it's street life or substance, is about immediacy. I need it now, right? I needed it a few seconds ago, but I'll take it now.
Instant gratification.
Right? And what we don't realize is that what we're after takes time. And it's built on a lot of setbacks and failures too. And when you don't have a tolerance for setbacks, failures, and time, like that's the anti. That's like the anti thing, right? Like we don't want things that take a lot of time. We don't want to deal with setbacks, right? And we want it now. And so there's no way to satisfy that. You're always unsatisfied. That's why, you know, you could be dead tomorrow when you're out there in this life. So all you can really do is tell somebody like whenever you're ready, but when you say that, that person might not make it. But you can't necessarily force that onto a person. People aren't going to be more self-aware because you demand it. It takes time to get there, and you have to introduce them to things. And so, let me tell you one of the secret things behind what I was doing in that scenario you talked about. You're coming from a world with no choice, right?
Yeah.
Stand for count, lock in, chow,
I mean, you got a
showers.
choice, but the consequences are always so horrible. You don't want to.
Well, you don't really have choice because no matter what you do, there's a consequence, right? There's just you're going to comply or you're going to be punished. It's not really choice. We think like, okay, I'm flexing my choice, but you're in a system that's designed to deal with your compliance and non-compliance. It's false choice. You're going to do this or you're going to do that, but you don't get away from whatever's going to be done, right? There's still a thing there, right? Now, what we're talking about here is giving you a sense of autonomy because in that environment you don't have any autonomy. You like to think you do by playing outside the rules, but that's not autonomy. That's antisocial. Autonomy is when you literally get to choose to go left or right and you're in control of what happens there, right? Like you get to, there's nothing outside. really pressing on you. And so the autonomy is, if you don't do it, no one will do it for you, right? And if you do it, you're the one who benefits the reward of that. But we want that. This is why we struggle in prison, why we break through, because we're pursuing real autonomy, right? And yes, there's always factors, but you can see the difference between being in a prison and being out here. And even in prison, you can find autonomy when you let go of the power you never had.
Right.
Right. And that bears repeating, right? Like in prison, all the shit we did through our gang activity, our being in control, all of that was power we never had. It was a false sense of power. And yes, it has consequences and results, but ultimately, it's how we end up turning, a short sentence into decades. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're wielding a lot of power there, right? But out here, right, it's a little different. So it's little subtle things like that have to go. That's the kind of thinking that goes into the theory around designing a program, both like Second Chance and Formers, right? They're both my babies. I designed those with my own hands, my own life. And part of it is that even when it comes to little things, we don't like to be told what to do. And so I'm looking at all these policies and procedures laying in front of me that have been created before me, and I'm like, you're basically trying to run a military environment with these policies and procedures. Like you're not. That's not realistic. People in the military don't transition into society very well without a lot of work, right? Because you can't go from that kind of superstructure to autonomy and expect success. Those two things don't bridge.
Right.
They pull you in opposite directions, actually. And so people have to start in little ways taking responsibility. And in order to take responsibility, they have to feel like they have a choice. And so, we wrote into our policy for the reentry program, we wrote into that people aren't going to be violated for not showing up. Can we work that out with DOC? And we did, because it was a voluntary program. Remember, we went from mandatory to voluntary, and our attendance and retention rate went up.
Yep.
People, as soon as you told the same people you have a choice, they started doing it more on their own. Right? Because we absorbed all those mandatory people who were only showing up like 60% of the time.
Yep.
Mandatory, showing up 60%.
Yep.
Okay, that's not working. Our attendance went up to 85% over 3 years. Almost immediately, people was like, bet, okay. And then, guys were still coming in there thinking they had to be there. And I'm like, no one's going to write you up. You're not going to go to jail or prison if you don't show up. This is your call. It's your call, and they start off with, I don't want to be here, to when can I set up my next appointment? Because they start to be treated like human beings.
Yeah.
Who are in the free society. Right. And so that was a part of why it was more laid back, and it was like, here's what I have to offer. It may not be what you're looking for, but if it is, the door's open. There's a lot of power in that for people, and not forcing you to have hard discussions before you're ready. It does take, I think the part where you said it took a long time is why most of us don't stick with the process, because again, we want it right now. We don't like the setbacks, right? And we certainly don't want to do it over a long period of time. It's just a lot of effort, man. And so I think you're revealing a part of why people don't do the work. But then they live completely dissatisfied with their lives because their outcomes are just so shitty. It's this cycle of shitty. I'm stuck in a shitty cycle. Fucking shitty relationships, shitty employment opportunities,
right.
shitty living environments, shitty everything, man, shitty neighborhood, shitty, interactions at the store and at with driving and that everything's just fucking shitty. It's like you're just living a shit fucking pile, right?
Right.
And we say that's the world, but I'm saying, well,
Why?
it's not the world. It's there are parts of the world like that, but look over there. Look at all that green pasture. There's still shit out there too, but not. It's spread out a lot.
Right. There's a lot more bread and mayonnaise added to that shit sandwich. Still a shit sandwich. We all got to take a bite. But I like mine with a lot of bread and a lot of mayo.
Dude, who you telling? And that's the other thing, Monte. That's the other thing, man. It's funny how it just comes back to this. Look, man, every day, we are supposed to take our daily dose of shit. It comes in a spoonful, right? And I've said this before.
Mine comes in a 3-year-old.
No, hold on. That's just one of the spoons.
Right.
But the problem is that some spoons are bigger than others. Yes. The problem is when you avoid eating shit most of your life by doing the things we did when we lived, it doesn't go away. It just waits. And now, now that we're changing and in recovery, here comes today's spoonful, and we still got to work through that big giant pile. We got to eat our way through that.
So I messaged you last week on the anniversary of Junior's loss. Man, I was rough. Like I had been sitting outside of work. I'd parked at work. I'd went in early. And I had been sitting in my truck crying. And it was really the first time I had cried since it happened, right? Like, it's been rough, but this year seemed harder. And as I'm sitting there, I realized why it was so hard. My entire life, I've equated sadness with anger, pain with rage. I've never dealt with emotions as they are up front, right? Like at face value. Like I've always taken my pain and turned it into hatred, my sadness and turned it into rage. And so I had never had to really experience this sadness, right? And that's what it is. It's this deep depression, right? It just sits at my fingertips. It's ready, right? Like, and prior to messaging you and saying, hey, I just needed to say it out loud, right? Like I just needed to speak that I was sad. Because I had never really said that. Right? I never really said I'm sad. Right? And I'm trying to utilize that now as a tool. Right? Like, let me recognize the fact that I'm sad. Right? This isn't anger. This isn't rage. This isn't hatred. This isn't pain. It is pain. It's pain in a deeper way than I've ever felt before. Because I've always been terrified of opening up that door and being sad. I was just sad. And I had to say it. And I swear to God to you, bro, it's been 10 years since I came home, and I'm just now learning how to be sad, right? I'm just now learning how to accept the fact that I am depressed. Like, today is a bad day. Today is a day that I can't just push away and be angry about it. Like, I have to be sad. I have to accept that I'm sad. I have to, continue to get up and do what I got to do, because as hard as it is, it's still necessary for me to move forward, right? And it's becoming easier to say that. It's becoming easier to say it's hard but necessary, right? Like, I got to do this, man. I got to do this or I got to lose, right? And I'm not a fucking loser. Like, I can fail. I'm okay with failing. I'm okay with not winning. I'm not okay with losing. Like, if I have to fail, I can get back up from a failure. I can't regain a loss, right? I lost my son. I can't regain it. Can't. And that's the only loss I'm going to take. Right? I'm going to honor him. I'm going to move. I'm going to walk. I'm going to honor my children. I'm going to honor me. I'm going to recognize that sadness that's inside me. Right? And I'm going to accept that. But 10 years, bro, 10 years we've been doing this, and it took that day, that single message I sent you, to recognize that it was sadness. Like, this is what sad feels like. Right? I'm 47 fucking years old, bro. I'm 47 years old, and it took sending that message to accept the fact that it was sadness that I was this feeling that I had known but never.
I think it's also a deeper understanding, right? It's increased self-awareness. That's what we're talking about today, right? In a sense, right? Like our self-awareness about what we're doing and experiencing is really low a lot of times, but we as humans we tend to overestimate how well we know ourselves. Right? Remember I told you in the jail, here are these guys caught in this loop of, incarceration, 10, 15, 20 years for some of them. And these guys would, I would say, okay, if Jesus and Buddha are on level 10 self-awareness, right? If you think of Jesus and Buddha, Gandhi, folks like that who are level 10 self-awareness on a scale of 1 to 10, zero being you don't have any at all, you're just a rock on a fucking log. Where do you put these guys? Would put themselves at 10 plus,
I'm at point zero 0.02 right now.
right? They're like 10 plus, 10 plus. We tend to overestimate how. If I asked any of these people on here, how self-aware are you? They're more than likely going to overestimate, even if they come up with that bullshit modesty. Oh, I'm probably like a 7. No, you're probably still overestimating,
Right.
right? Me too. Like there are so many things that we're just, you know, especially if you're in this thread, if you're in this algorithm, if you're in this channel of where
Right.
you listen, you have to assume things are worse than they are. Like, but how about
We're here.
how about when we were like assuming things were better than they were, right? You're in jail for, I done turned a few months into decades, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
Right.
The world is fucked up. I'm good. I'm the one who's got it figured out. I'm right. We just assume things are. We It's just a human condition. We tend to think things are better, and we tend to think things are worse than they are, right? And it's like working against us. And what we need to do is invert those so that we work towards the middle. Right? We're always trying to get to the edges. Now, I think in your case, because I read that post and I read it carefully, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of growth in here. A lot of growth in here from what the because you're and that's expected because you're sticking with the process. So it's not that I don't want you to reduce it to like you're some dumbass who just figured out you're sad. No, it's not that. I think I think what I
I love
think
my
it
talk,
is,
Sammy.
what I think it is, I think you'll appreciate this. It's we all know when we're sad, and that's why we know how to cover it up because we identify it, we don't like it, so we cover it up. I think what's really happening is the level of acceptance of your humanity, because that other life is a denial of your humanity. It's a denial of who you are as a person, right? It's we want to be anything but human in our other life, man. Think about that, bro. Like we're anything but you're calling yourself Superman, I'm seeing myself as this, this fucking untouchable boss, right? Like we want to be anything but human. And addiction, that's why addiction is so fucking hard to beat because we've put all these mechanisms in place that help us not deal with the shit that regular people deal with, like feelings, certain feelings, like sadness and hurt and grief and loss. All frustration comes from our inability to accept the limits of our control. All frustration. All of our frustration comes from a simple idea that I cannot accept the limits of my control. And when you start to accept that, it relieves you of the power you've never had. You're trying to hang on to power that is mythological. And so when the myth dissipates, all you're left with is reality. And you either fight it or embrace it. Embracing it doesn't mean you don't need to do anything about it. It means the way you're fighting changes and what you're fighting changes. What you're fighting for changes and what you're maybe you go from fighting with to fighting for in this very same path that you're on. right? You went from I've lost my son to I'm going to honor my son. You're in the same fight. It's the same fucking fight, but you're changing the way you're thinking about this fight. You're learning to suffer well, bro. That's what this is. That's one of the fundamental principles of FA. We learn to suffer well because you cannot escape your suffering,
You got a
right? You
moose.
can't escape it.
You keep a moose as a pet? How tall is that thing, dude?
Dude,
Love you, Missy. Love
he's
you,
ran
Jan.
over
Big Tony.
Julie a
Love you,
total
bro.
of 2 times. Julie was walking him, and so I'm training him, right? And I got him on a 50-foot lead because I want to be able to let him go, but I want him to come back, right? And he won't come back unless I have a way. I can't call him, otherwise I'll ruin the call if I can't make him come back, right? So Julie was walking him around the pond, and he starts running. She's got him on this lead. Dude, he launched Julie. Julie, all you saw was her arm go straight and then take off like a fucking rocket.
He's like twice as big as Julie, bro.
Dude, and then the other day,
That poor woman.
she's fucking playing with him, and she's like bent over, and he comes up with his head and fucking cracks her in the face. I'm like, you might not want a rough house with that dog. Like, you're too
Right,
small. He made her cry yesterday. He trampled her leg yesterday pretty hard outside. He doesn't know. He's just playing, man.
right, right.
Anyway,
Yeah,
anyway.
I definitely agree, man. And there are people out there who think they should know more um, about how far they are. You really can't find that on yourself by yourself, right? Like I I had no clue. Like literally, I had no clue when we first met. Like I was good in my head. I was banging. Like I was out. Like I was staying out of trouble. I was whole 9 yards. And then started coming to stupid group, seeing you on the side, like, and I realized, wow, man, like there's a lot to this. When I had to start recognizing the fact that I had to respect myself more, right? Like what I thought of respect and what I learned about respect were totally different. Like they were totally different. Respecting my needs, right? Like that was one of the first things you really got on me. Like why are you respecting your needs, right? Like why are like you're doing great, you're doing good things. You got a Volunteer of the Year award, Rising Star, crap. Like what are these awards now? I'm like, oh yeah, thanks, cool, right? But at that time, when you had said, hey, listen, you're great at helping others, you're great at rushing to someone's aid. You can rush to your aid. When are you going to sit down and say, I need an hour of phone off time? Like, just turn your phone off. Ignore the world. Enjoy your time. And I try to do that. Like, I've taken that into account quite a bit. But yeah, man, it's funny because we talk about we people nonchalantly remark, yeah, I'm in recovery. Right? There's so much more to it. There's so much more in depth about being in recovery and being active in recovery. Right? That stagnation that we talked about just sitting. How can you be growing if you're not? Right? And how do you know if you're growing if you don't have anything to look at to compare it to? That's what's so important about that group, about that togetherness, about that core, right? Like I can watch others and they can watch me, and we can see from each other our growth. Right? Yeah, recognizing that I accept that I was sad, because you're right. I know what sadness is, but understanding and recognizing that emotion is something I wasn't skilled in. I'm not skilled at it, but I'm learning, right? And, and it's a even it's an everyday thing, right? I'm learning something new every fucking day. Every fucking day, I gotta learn something new. Like I'm still in school, man. I'm still in school.
And that and we all should be still in school. You know, all of us, we should all be in that mindset. If you can be in that mindset, you know, think about being really good at something by yourself. Um, so I learned a valuable lesson when I went from graduating college to applying for my PhD program. Now, in my associate's program, I got presidential honors 4.0. My bachelor's program, presidential honors 4.0, and a couple of other awards. Master's program, presidential honor 3.8, because the courses started getting harder. So now I averaged a 3.8 in my master's program. And I got like a summa cum laude like award, social work award, things like that, leadership award. I get to PhD. I had like 10 rejections just trying to get into school.
Right, right.
Right now, what somebody explained to me at some point finally was that yes, you've been really successful. Like the competitive balance and your associate's degree is not that great. The competitive audience of your bachelor's is greater than, but not that great. It gets a little tougher at masters. We get more competition. It gets more competitive because the greater minds come. He said, now all of a sudden you're at a choke point where the best of the best in the country are all in one place trying to get a very few select slots. And now you're not as competitive, easily competitive as you were before. So it's not you that you have failed. It's that the competition you're up against has condensed. It's now it's the best of the best, right? And you have to be the best to get into some of the schools you're applying for. Well, that's a valuable lesson when you realize that, yeah, if you only punch the bag, you're probably the world's greatest boxer in your head. Get
Right.
in the fucking ring and start, testing that out. You're going to find out there are a lot of other good bag punchers in that ring with you who are going to ring your bell. You won't get better if you're never putting yourself in those competitive stages, right? Where that's kind of like what we're talking about in recovery. If you do this shit by yourself, all your ideas are going to sound fucking great.
Right.
That's how we ended up in the situations we were in. At what point did it make fucking sense to stick guns in people's faces?
Right.
Right. But to us, it was like, this is a great idea. Steal the
Yeah.
cars. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, do these things. It's a great idea. Tell that guard, fuck, it's a great idea.
Right.
When you listen to yourself, all your ideas sound great. But that's tragic. That's tragic, right? Like it leads to
Right.
tragic. Oh, after a while, it's only when you expose yourself to these other environments and institutions that you start to understand how to be challenged, and it introduces you to things you didn't know. You didn't know. Now I've worked. I have taught. I have coached a little bit on boxing. I've helped some like state champions. Never been to like anything big, but I've worked with kids and men who are good boxers. But because I have a particular style, every coach will, every boxer will. I see things that could be added or changed, but it doesn't mean that the person isn't good. You know, I see that this guy steps or shifts in a certain way, and I'm like, but if you add a step this way, it's just a tweak, and it's a game changer for some of these guys. And it wasn't that they didn't know their shit well. It's just I have a different perspective, a different system, a different component, an add-on to this. You've taught me that working on engines. Oh, if you do this, Sammy, or when you get stuck in this way, here's a trick. It's not that I didn't know all that other stuff. I've just added to it, and I never would have got there on my own, or it's going to be 20 years down the road.
Yep.
I'm not going to accelerate my growth by myself, right? You accelerate growth, you accelerate self-awareness, you accelerate opportunity by mixing in with others, other systems. Remember, mixing in with yourself, sticking with it, mixing in with others, mixing in with professionals. You will accelerate your growth. but you won't really do that on your own. Even if you read a book and you're watching videos, the problem is you think the way you think, so everything you take in is that's not challenged by another person, you're going to filter it through the way you filter things. And it's not necessarily going to lead to growth. For example, one of our young guys, right? This is when we're still in the game, going to college. He wants to become a pilot, right? What did we start talking to him about? Helping him get his license so he can help us traffic drugs. Exposed to new information, but still using it in the same, right?
Same.
That's the problem, right? It's when you get around people completely different than you hear different. But because our trust issues. Remember that whole conversation? Hell, I don't even know myself, so how can they know? Well, it's not a fault of the other person, then. Like you're tricking people into thinking you're giving them something that you're really not. It's not a genuine interaction. You can't help it. You're stuck in your trauma or whatever. But you can't assume that it's other people's fault that they don't know you, right? And we're quick. We love to say, "Oh, you don't know me. You don't know nothing about me." Well, it's because you haven't shared it.
Right.
How many women have tried to love us through that and they just don't get nothing? And how many of them were good women, right? Like in my case, yeah, if I would have been able to give of myself.
I won't comment on your past history, please.
Not all of them were good women. I'm not saying
There's the one or two out there. You know,
God, what is wrong with me? I don't know. Look at me now, though. Look at me now. Mild versions of all of that.
right?
I'll deny it if you said it. If you said it.
I was talking. Me, Kelly, and Lizzie were talking one time, and Kelly was talking. And we're having a great conversation. We're sitting at the table having coffee, and Kelly was like, "Do you remember when I hit you in the head with that huge citronella candle that was like an inch thick of glass?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, you thought I forgot about that, right?" We're all laughing, and Lizzie goes, we're the same crazy. I'm just better at hiding it." And I'm like, "All right, awesome. Like, I'll go sleep in the garage tonight. You ladies can sit in here and talk. Like, I'm done. I'm just
Do I
done."
need a restraining order?
Right.
Too,
We're
too
at
soon, man. Too
so
soon.
I got a new. Let's talk about. Let's switch subjects a little bit. So after 3 years, um, I finally got a new general practitioner, a doctor. Um, Met him 2 days ago. Amazing guy. Works at Ascension. We clicked immediately. Had a great conversation. And we're talking about my health and the fact that he's amazed that my tests show I'm as healthy as I am, considering the habits that I had. He was like, stress test. We're going to do a stress test on you, but your arteries look amazing. Your lungs look great for someone who smokes 3 packs a day for 30 plus years. Um, you're going to have a colonoscopy. Like, it was just that change, right? Right there. We're talking, we're laughing. He's like, "I'm going to have someone shove something up your ass," right? And my first thought was, no, no, I'm not going to do this. And he started talking about cars. And he was like, "What should I do if my car does this?" And I'm like, "Well, I would look at it that, but what I would do if I were you is trust your professional, like trust your mechanic to tell you what's best to keep your car going." And he switched the subject right back. It's one of your tricks. And he was like, "Great, because your dad died from polyps, and they diagnosed him in his 50s. You're 47." He was like, "Do you want to leave your kids alone? I'm your professional, bro. What do you want to do?" I was like, and I put my head down and I'm like, "Doc, here's the deal. If you would do it, then just, yeah, order me whatever tests I need to take to stay alive." And he smiled. He was like, "Great." He was like, "Because as good as healthy as you're in," he was like, "you could wake up tomorrow and not, he was like, you're on the precipice. Smoke.
Yeah.
Don't watch your diet. You know what I mean? You're like, you don't have healthy habits. It's like, you're a great guy. So let's try to keep you ordered me a new CPAP. But yeah, no, he went direct. Dude, it was hilarious. So we were talking about my heart and my test. He was like, "All right, I'm gonna order you a colonoscopy." I'm like, "Oh, what? What? Wait, what?" I don't think so. Get her done, Selena. I hear you, babe. But yeah, that's the same in recovery, right? Like dealing with trauma, finding finding a professional therapist, a counselor, whatever it takes, right? Like, and being
Hell,
honest,
even a coach. Yeah.
and being honest. I think that's the worst part when people see a therapist or it's like, out of my experience, I lied. Oh, things are great. I'm fine. You know what I'm saying? But just like my doctor, all my therapist wants is me to be okay. Like
Yeah.
they just want me to be okay. I don't think there's many therapists who get into the job for purely the money because therapists don't make a ton of fucking money. Like they're not rich. They're not making bank. They do it because they care about humanity, right? For the
It's
most
a
part.
it's service work, you know.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be service work anyway, and people do it because they genuinely want to, make a difference. That's I don't know why. Like we're just driven to do those things, And I mean, there when I first started, I was making $20,000 a year. Like even back then, that was not much.
No, still not.
I was choosing like between eating and paying bills at some point. It was
Yeah.
just regardless, man. And I like that analogy because FA. I've been in enough 12-step environments where I've seen people talk poorly about professionalism, and I get it. And it comes from a broken place, if you ask me, because if you go to one store and you can't find a pair of shoes, do you stop going to all stores because that one store? No, and, and there are a lot of shitty stores out there. You might have to hop until you find the right store that has what you're looking for. It's the same thing with therapists. It's the same with counseling or coaching. You might have to hop around until you find the fit, but don't give up because not all therapists, counselors, and coaches are created equal. I have challenged a lot of terrible people, including a lot in Racine who are awful, awful at their jobs. They're unethical, but they don't represent all of us. And we should know that. We should know that, right? We can't just generalize and stereotype. I remember this girl, I can't even say her name, the client, 17 years old, was a what was a I wanted to punch her in her face, and I was a professional singer. Just super disrespectful, trying to be hardcore. I mean, from Racine, how hardcore can you be, right? And
Right.
I'm
Right.
just like, just really, uh, in her first appointment, she was like, I had my degrees, the ones that behind me, up on my wall, and she's like, "Oh, so you're book smart, but you're probably not like street smart."
Right.
And I just let it go. I was like,
Who
you
cares?
know,
Right.
yeah, just whatever, and I was like, well, you never know, but there are people who are book smart who can help you too. Like you can get. I know people who were book smart in my life who helped me. And later, I think she Googled my name or something, came back and apologized, for what she had said. And she's like, why didn't you say anything? I'm like, because it wasn't important. It wasn't important what I said. What's important is what you think and what you do. It's not important how I make. Like I'm not here to make you think one way or anything about me. I don't care how you see me. I just want to see you do better. I want you to move forward in life. So I can't be here to challenge you on your opinions. I'm here to challenge you on your next course of action. Like, what are you going to do next? And it's tough because people have these stereotypes. They think because you got a degree. Think about this, man. This is the only profession where you get shit on for having education,
Right. Right. Oh, you
right?
got a degree. Now
Can
you
you
know who
imagine?
I am.
What if you said that to your brain surgeon,
Right. Oh, whoop de
right?
doo! You got a piece of paper. I want my neighbor down the street to do it in his garage.
I need someone from the street to do it, right?
My cousin Paul has a friend named Jerry. He knows what he's doing. He watched it on Google.
Anyway, listen, I've got to get going. I started a TikTok formers page.
I seen. I followed it.
I think I sent you the logins, didn't I?
No.
It's in chat. I'm pretty sure I did.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's in our messenger chat.
Okay. I'll take a look.
I have to see. I know I wrote them down somewhere, or I took a picture, I think. Yeah, I sent you the picture. I think I sent you a picture of the logins. Let me see here. But let me think here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'll send it to you again right now. Okay. I just found the picture. But for our folks in the audience, find us on TikTok. Formers, I think it's Formers Anonymous.
Formers Anonymous 1.
Yeah, and then
I'll share the link as well. I'll go on.
Yeah, we're gonna get this up and off the ground, and then like a lot of those clips that they're trying to send over. I was struggling like how to share it to that page because I couldn't find it, and I don't know if it's because I'm associated with the account, so it doesn't come up.
Yeah, most likely.
I don't know how to. You should have got it in Messenger. I think I just sent it over. I'm gonna do it again just in case I didn't. But I think today, what you've thank you, Sean. I think you're really, you're still hard on yourself. But I think socialization teaches men to talk about themselves like they're stupid too. Like when you look at a lot of the sitcoms, you look a lot of how we talk about men. We don't want to play into that.
It's not that I think I'm stupid, bro. It's just I've been dropped on my head a lot. The brain damage is real sometimes, and sometimes it'll be sitting right in my face, right? Like the whole time it was just right here, and I'll be looking over here, and it's like a kid with its tongue out. And I'll be like, "Oh crap, where'd you come from? Oh wait, you're me. Oh hi, right?" Like, and then I'll realize that and most of the time it's because I'm purposely ignoring that part of my personality, right? Like I'm purposely trying to avoid the acceptance of exactly as you said, my humanity, right? Like I lived so long hating that part of myself, right? Thinking that was my weakness, thinking that was my Achilles heel. Hey,
that's not hate. That's not hate, one thing. That's fear.
Fear, right? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. I think we should do a whole talk on about how we avoid those feelings and turn them into anger, hate, rage, and fear, right? Like we do that on purpose. But I was going to ask you a question. Now you've heard of Achilles, right? Do you know the story behind that?
Yes.
Yeah, like his mother wanted to keep him and his twin brother, both of these, immortal.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you.
I love you, bro. I love you guys. Like, remember, don't forget to like and share. You guys, your shares bring our viewers in, and that's always helpful. We get the word out. We do what we're supposed to do. I love you guys. I appreciate all of your support. Sammy does as well. You can find us on TikTok now. It is Formers Anonymous 1. I will share the link to my page. Please like and follow, and then I'll share it to you guys. Maybe I'll do a live on my page and share out that info too on my TikTok page. So otherwise, we'll see you next Sunday. Remember, you guys, we are on at Sunday morning, 9:30 to 10:30, 11, depending on the week. But we'll start at around 9:30. Obviously, because of life, sometimes we start a little bit later. But we thank you guys for participating and being a part of our journey, man. All right, bro. I love you, man.
Much love, y'all. Peace out, y'all.